Welcome back, everybody. You know, I absolutely hate making mistakes. And the only time I really get confused with things is when I'm making tables and where I need to drill my dowel holes in the leg so that everything lines up properly. And you can see that that's nice 3 holes there. But sometimes when I drill it on the other side, I end up drilling holes along here and they should have been here. So now you've got a bunch of holes to fill and it just takes up so much time. So stick around. I want to show you a couple of great ideas I've come up with to prevent that. So the whole purpose when making a table, and this is the apron here, is you have one back leg and it's very similar to this other back leg, which is also pretty similar to the front leg and another front leg. So it's really easy to get confused on where these are. So first of all, what I want to do is mark the leg. So let me show you how we do that. So there's 4 legs that I have laid out. And when you put them all together, you always want to pick them out and lay them out the way you would, however it is that you want to see them. And the way to mark them so you don't get confused is, I came up with this years ago, and I've done it on another video, but a good place to review it here is to just do this. So you go 1, 2, 3, and over here you could do 4 or you could leave nothing, but I'm going to do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, no matter what you do, whenever you move these around, it is super easy to put these back together the way they are. So there's a 2 and a 2. There we go. There's a 1 there, a 1 there, and the 3 is over there, and the 4 will line up there. So there they are, scrambled and all back together. Now that's how you can use a guide to start putting in the dowel holes on the side. So let's have a look at that. Okay, there's the 4 legs that we just laid out. Now what we need to have happen with these legs is they all need to end up with specific dowel holes in the correct location. So the aprons are going to fit on like that. So that's going to be, in this case, that's going to be that back leg, for example, and that's how that's going to fit together. And you can see there's a little bit of a reveal in there as well. So we need to do that with all of these. So how do we lay this out? And that's the next step. Now, before I move to the next step, I want to show you one of the newest little tools that I've been using for some time now. Most of you will recognize Milwaukee, the tool company, and they've been making a marking pen like this for a few years. I only recently discovered that they're now making an ultra fine pen, or at least they're having made for them, an ultra fine marking pen. Look at how fine this is. This is just like a pencil. It's a very fine line. I love this thing. This is my new marking pen in the workshop because it makes a nice solid line, but it's a very thin line. And you can get these at most of your dealers that are selling Milwaukee. And if you don't have one handy, I will put a link in the description and in the article on Woodwork Web where you can pick those up. So what I've come up with here is something I call a dowel planning jig or a dowel planning template. And you can make them in wood or you can make them in clear plastic. And I'm going to show you today how to make both of these. But before I do, let me show you how and where we use these. So when it comes to standard woods that I use in woodworking, I often pick on 2-inch. And when you're using a doweling jig, the problem with 2-inch is that if you look here, you'll see that these all are nicely spaced, but the very last one, look at this, and there's where that little planning template comes in handy. There's not a lot of room at the very top of that, so it's not ideal for 3 dowels. But what is ideal when we look at this one and put the template against it is, look at that. Now I have just the right amount of wood on all sides of the holes, and look at how that looks. There it is right there. And this happens to be 2 1/8, so it's only an 1/8 inch more, but it really makes a much better balance for the dowels to sit in. Then when I look at this one and go, well, what if I want to put 4 dowels in? what's a good fit for that one. And as it turns out, 2 3/4 inches is just perfect for that, for 4 dowels if you want to put 4 dowels. So you can pre-cut and start using these numbers instead of what I've been doing in the past, is just picking one of my favorites that doesn't always work out properly. And of course, if you want to put dowels all the way, if it's a big table and you want it really super strong aprons and leg attachment, and you want to have all 5 holes, that turns out to be 3.5 inches. And that's where this thing comes super invaluable in planning where your dowels are going to go. So let's go back to the legs and look at that now. So there's my 4 legs, and if we were looking down at the top, for example, what I know now is that for this one, the holes need to get drilled here. So now what I can do is I can take my planning template. I just need to hold that against there. And this is only as a reminder to you to where these holes, you're not going to be drilling exactly where these holes are. This is just a visual marker to show you where you need to drill holes. And let's say it's going to be 3 holes in there. So I'm going to mark 3 of them like that. And that's what that's going to look like, is something like that. Now, below this, there's also going to need to be holes drilled. And in this case, they're going to be in this area here, and that's where now we flip that up, and now I can mark that one. Now I know exactly where the holes need to be drilled in this leg on both of those sides. Now I can move this out of the way because I know the matching holes on this one are going to be right there. And this pen is marking that. And because we're not just drawing a line, we're actually making circles there, it stands out more. And of course, the same thing on this side, because there's going to be an apron going here. So while we're working on this leg, we can put some holes right there, or some marks right there. And now we know exactly where those holes need to be drilled, and we'll always be able to put these legs back in exactly the same sequence. So it's going to line up perfectly every time. Now I've just taken a moment and marked every leg, and you can see pretty easily where every dowel hole needs to be drilled, so that when this table comes together, it'll all come together exactly the way it needs to. And of course, the nice thing with these markings on here is they're going to be covered over, in this case, with the apron, a table apron, if that's the whatever it is that you're making. Same with that one down there. Those are all going to be covered over. All of these will be covered over so that you'll actually never see the markings on there. If you're afraid that you might have marked these in the wrong place, you could use a pencil in there. Okay, so let's make these jigs. The plastic one will go first, and I just use plastic offcuts that I get from the plastic shop. I found the smaller one. It's about 3/16 of an inch thick. I think they call it 4.5 millimeter. That's what plastic is measured in. And I've used a little bit thicker, and they both work fine, so it doesn't really matter. Let's go to the table saw and start cutting. So a 60-tooth crosscut blade works about the best for this. I've just set my fence so that it just barely grazes a 3/4 inch piece of wood. And when you push the wood through, you need to make sure that you get a good push stick that's going to be able to hold down your wood or your plastic like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and just push it straight through. Now I just took a moment and taped this down because it's a little slippery on this backer board that I have, which I used for measuring the width. Now we just drop the dowel max on top of that and line that to the very front there, which I've done. And I'm going to drill the first hole right there. And because there's a backer board down there, I've never had the plastic break out. So now I can't drill the next hole because the collar interferes with the locking pin there, the positioning pin. So I'm going to go down and do the other ones and then come back and do that one. Now the last thing I need to do is mark the end of this, and I'm not going to use felt pen on that. I'm going to etch that. And there's the perfect footprint of the Dowel Max, and that now is a clear planning jig, and I really prefer these. This is much nicer to work with, but you can do the same thing with wood. Let me show you how easy it is to make a wooden version of this. So here's how easy this is. I just cut a piece of wood the exact length of the doweling jig. Now I'm going to drill holes in every place. Now I need to take that over to the table saw, and I'm just going to trim that off. Well, that concludes my video for today. 2 versions of my dowel planning jig, and if you're using dowels and you're making tables or different forms of cabinetry, and sometimes you're worried about drilling holes in the wrong place and you don't want to have to fill holes, this might be the thing that'll save you some time and frustration. I'm Colin Kennett for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.